In this video, we'll be covering how both Baten Kaitos Eternal Wings in the Lost Ocean and Baten Kaitos Origins and their Gamecube releases differ between regions and between the recently released Baten Kaitos I and II HD on Nintendo Switch. Before we start, these videos are made possible by my patrons, and a huge thank you to the series speedrunning and research community and their documentation, data mining, assistance, and direct feedback on this video. So let's start with Eternal Wings. Many Magnus had their names and art altered in the international versions. The only gameplay effect is that Strange Brew became a drink, so instead of rotten food it becomes vinegar. Otherwise, this text in the beginning can't be skipped, and the already English dubbed opening was redubbed with the localizations cast.
In this world, there are things that people mustn't touch. Who cares?
In this world, there are things that people mustn't touch. Who cares?
And between the NTSC and PAL versions, the title screen and voice magnets were changed, and you can't skip this music sequence cutscene. And now we'll look at Baten Kaitos Origins. The Japanese version has a revision that fixes several severe progress-halting bugs and crashes. There's a lot, but we'll look at a few. A fun bug is that certain Magnus coupons could be picked up again after redeeming, and a bug used in the speedrun to save 30 to 40 minutes, known as a Bali escape, is due to this save flower being too close to the left. Meanwhile, a bug in the overseas version is that the field guy doesn't show type anymore, and if you make small talk with the registration lady in the Coliseum after Tarazet appears, but before going to Vega, you won't be able to do the rank 5 quest. In the Japanese versions of both games, they ask the Spirit Guardians, aka the player's, gender, and while overseas Eternal Wings does as well, Origins does not. The selection changes your name's color, how dialogue options are worded, and in Origin, Daimon's gender is the opposite of yours. Eternal Wings only says your name, but in Origins, they go with he, him. Gameplay-wise, the differences are minor. 3 swordsman groups in Mintaka were reduced to 2 swordsmen in them. Some of Gilo's EX combos had their damage buffed. The dialogue choice before the boss at Vein Roots gave different points between the versions, and more enemies could be instantly killed with Magnus Bombs or Tarot Card Death. The overseas version has 2 instances where religious references were censored. There's a scene of Sagi tied to a cross changed to a block, and Giacomo's theme was altered. Otherwise, there's minimal visual differences such as battle results screen and starting logos. And with that out of the way, we can move on to Baten Kaitos I and II HD. For quality of life across both games, we've got autosave, skipping cutscenes, and advanced New Game, which includes New Game Plus and New Game Minus. For both, everything carries over except Quest Magnus, Valuables, and Side Story completion. Magnus are retained and continue to age as well. Also in New Game Plus for Eternal Wings, you'll always earn a Photo Magnus after battle. New Game Minus resets experience, disables level gains in Eternal Wings, and caps levels to 20 in Origins, and disables the custom gameplay features. So let's take a look at what those are. If you hit pause, you'll be able to disable encounters, enable one-hit kill, have separate speed options for the field and battle, and there's auto battle. Eternal Wings simple results were also moved to this pause option. Speed mods don't affect aging of cards, but they do affect the time limits in battle. You also can't change any modifiers in battle, so if you go in at 300%, you're stuck like that. Auto attack simply picks a single card. It isn't reliable unless you're combining it with one-hit kill and the speed modifier, and with no support Magnus in your deck, which is easier to do in Origins. The Prophet's Notebook, when you made it, would notify you when Magnus aged. In the Eternal Wings remaster, there's a Magnus log always available you can check, so the Prophet's Notebook is effectively useless. Origins Easy Battle Mode was removed, which would prevent anyone from acting while time selection is active and pauses delay gauges until everyone is done acting. The Vein Roots boss can now attack Valara. Valara attacks the boss regardless of whether the header's out or not, and you can buff or heal Valara. The side quest in Origins that requires either a save file of Eternal Wings on the memory card or for you to be in New Game Plus can now only be done in New Game Plus regardless of Eternal Wings save files. Also, overseas gameplay changes in Origins are present in all versions of the remaster. And also, while testing the latest patch, I can confirm brightness is still a factor when it comes to photos in some way. The remasters have a lot of bugs, a few legacy and many new, many cosmetic, and a few that were severe before patches, but still some are there we'll we'll talk about. There are far too many of still unknown causes to cover them all. There's been 3 patches as of this video, and I'd consider them lifesavers if you care for 100% completion due to how many affect collection or achievements. There's even a patched bug where after the final boss, if you go past this cutscene trigger into the next area, you have soft-locked and have to reload a manual save due to the autosaves locking you in. Diagonal inputs when selecting magnets didn't even work before either. Meanwhile, here are some current things to be aware of. In Origins, after a successful trade, if you opt to trade again but then back out, you'll lose the magnets from the trade. There's also reports of Pac-Man either duplicating or disappearing from people's inventories, which could be pretty harmful. There's also issues with skipping dialogue after a Coliseum match, soft locking, equipment that are supposed to give you headaches don't, or sometimes magnets temporarily not showing as upgradable, seemingly when other magnets are sitting in your junk. And again, there are a whole lot that I'm not covering here, but given the nature of most bugs, I strongly recommend rotating saves and consider redoing steps if something isn't triggering, like achievements or Coliseum rank ups. I'd also like if, for anyone that has finished the games, comment below any advice you would give to new players on what to look out for. Now, both games originally were 480p 30 with 60 FPS menus. I have measured both remasters to be 764p and go up to 60 but struggle to maintain that and suffer from slowdown and unstable dips. For the first game, this is only noteworthy with this one part where you fight 2 bosses back to back in constant severe slowdown. Meanwhile, every battle in Origins can feel inconsistently unresponsive due to the slowdown causing delayed and subsequently dropped inputs, where it wouldn't if the game ran at 60 consistently or in the original game. Both games share more consistent UI now. Eternal Wings benefits most from this, though it was cool how before your last battle would be your background. Origins' original UI still holds up though. The UI overhauls come with new features though, such as music playlist, bulk junking Magnus, and more fleshed out help guides. More modern looking shaders are used with updated character models too. This is most evident when you step into battle environments, especially in boss arenas where the bosses themselves and the environments get to show off more. However, any use of depth of field was removed. The pre-rendered backgrounds look pretty good. I believe AI upscaling was used for them, though these backgrounds were probably higher resolution than say PS1 backgrounds, and the intended art style is retained and details are pretty clean. The only real hint is some missing color details and occasional unnatural blur. They've also got manual touch-ups and slightly adjusted effects to them, along with nice adaptation to widescreen, at least when applicable. I noticed throughout the games though that effects were added, changed, or ended up being removed. Something's notably different with alpha effects like fog or waterfalls. Now the original games did use dithering for these things, but overall, they're not as translucent as they used to be, and this can be a detriment and change the intended tone of the environments. Lastly, pre-rendered assets like the openings are higher resolution, though they do feature more compression than their GameCube counterparts. And also the Japanese version of the Eternal Wings opening is used in all regions. The original Japanese voiceover is retained, but the English dubs were cut. The official reasoning provided for cutting the English dubs of both games was since they made adjustments on some of the expressions to match the current era, there would be discrepancies. While the first game had a pretty hammy dub, Origins dub was a notable step up, so we've unfortunately lost that. A few things that we're about to cover though may have to do with why the dubs were cut. The voices in Eternal Wings on GameCube, both Japanese and English, had an echo effect to them, but this isn't present in the remaster.
あの森のことをやたら恐れてるみたいだが、気にすることはない。あの森のことをやたら恐れてるみたいだが、気にすることはない。
The raw files on the disc don't have this echo though, so the cut English dub has nothing to do with the echo.
But I think they're making a big deal out of nothing. Mere superstition, I tell you. But I think they're making a big deal out of nothing. Mere superstition, I tell you.
There were some script changes made along with some terms changed. A few examples are that taint clouds are now toxic clouds, which is said out loud multiple times. Jill's jewelry box is now an offering box, ox tongue is now pow tongue, or Japanese rice wine is now rice brew, along with any mention of alcohol in general being removed, and either becoming a brew or juice. Also, the player is referred to as they them instead of he him, and the gender select in Eternal Wings was removed, though both games in Japanese still ask. Additionally, Mizuti's dialect was toned down. So that all being said, if they were to patch in the English dubs, there would be a lot of work to undo these localization changes. The localized Magnus names and art were actually retained between Japanese and overseas version, though not the PAL art. The cross is a block in the Japanese version now, and Giacomo's battle theme now has a third version used in both the Japanese and English versions. So the significance of many of the aspects we've covered vary depending on who you ask. Whether you want the English dubs, care for the localization changes, or if you're like me and are bothered by the inconsistent performance that directly affects how the game plays, you may be sticking to the GameCube versions. I'd argue for the remaster that if you're interested in completion, the quality of life features are extremely beneficial, though even with all the patches, I'm still not confident in telling you you're 100% safe in that pursuit. Though there are also definitely parts of these games that just benefit from these quality of life features. If you're stuck without patches, then you're in the rough of it, though I don't like myself and others having to play QA for Bandai Namco. All that aside, it's still great to see games like these made accessible and being promoted, and while they may not be for everyone, Origins has personally found its way into my top GameCube games. And that'll be it for this one. Be sure to like and subscribe and support on Patreon if you'd like for more comprehensive reviews, as I'd still like to cover Star Ocean and Super Mario RPG before the end of the year. Wish me luck on that. So until next time, thanks for watching.